You can spend 6 months being the perfect friend to a woman and still wonder why she never sees you as anything more. You listen to her problems, you make her laugh, you answer when she calls, you become the man she trusts. And somehow, another guy walks into her life, says less, carries himself differently, and suddenly you're watching her give him the attention you secretly wanted. That hurts because it creates one dangerous question in your mind. What am I missing? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You usually cannot talk a woman into desiring you. You cannot negotiate attraction, earn it through endless favors, or manufacture it with some magical sentence. But you can change the dynamic between two people in a short conversation by changing how you show up, how you communicate interest, and whether you give her room to choose you freely. And that is where the 7 minute idea becomes interesting, because 7 minutes is not enough to create genuine attraction from nothing, but 7 minutes can be enough to reveal whether attraction has been hiding underneath the friendship all along. So, what exactly do you do when that moment arrives? If you're watching this because you have a female friend you think about more than you should, this is for you. Maybe she texts you late at night. Maybe she tells you everything about the men she dates. Maybe she teases you, touches your arm occasionally, gives you intense eye contact, or tells you that you're such a good guy. And you keep wondering whether those moments mean something more. The difficult part is that friendship creates emotional closeness without automatically creating romantic attraction. That distinction matters. You can know someone deeply without wanting a relationship with them. You can feel safe around someone without feeling romantic chemistry. And you can even have attraction towards someone while behaving cautiously because you are afraid of damaging the friendship. So instead of trying to decode every smile, every emoji, or every delayed message, you need to understand the psychology underneath the interaction. One of the biggest mistakes men make is believing attraction is created by doing more. More texting, more compliments, more availability, more emotional support, more favors. But attraction does not operate like a loyalty program. You do not collect enough points and eventually receive romance. In fact, excessive availability can sometimes create the opposite problem. When someone knows exactly where you stand and knows you will always be there regardless of how they respond, there may be very little uncertainty left to explore. That doesn't mean you should play games. It means you should stop hiding your intentions behind friendship. There is a massive difference between being genuinely kind and secretly performing kindness because you hope the other person will eventually reward you with attraction. Women can often sense that difference. And when your behavior says, I'm your friend, while your internal expectation says, I'm waiting for you to choose me, tension builds inside you. That tension can eventually turn into resentment. This is where psychological concepts like cognitive dissonance become useful. Cognitive dissonance happens when your actions and beliefs don't line up. You tell yourself you're happy being friends, but every time she talks about another man, you feel jealous. You say you don't expect anything, but you become disappointed when she doesn't flirt back. You tell yourself you're patient, but secretly you're keeping score. That internal conflict changes your behavior. You become needy without realizing it. You overanalyze, you seek reassurance, you start trying to prove your value. And ironically, the harder you try to convince her that you're valuable, the less naturally attractive you may appear. So what changes the dynamic? Clarity, confidence, playfulness, boundaries, and most importantly, the willingness to accept her answer. Here's the first curiosity point. Sometimes what looks like friend zone behavior is not a permanent psychological category at all. Sometimes the dynamic simply became established because neither person ever introduced romantic possibility. But there is another side. Sometimes she genuinely sees you only as a friend, and no technique should be used to override that reality. The goal is not to control her feelings. The goal is to communicate your own honestly and discover whether the attraction is mutual. That distinction will save you months of confusion because the real question isn't, how can I make her want me? The better question is, how can I create an honest moment where both of us can discover whether something more is actually there? That is where the psychology becomes powerful. Most men think attraction begins when they say the perfect thing. It usually doesn't. Attraction is influenced by the entire emotional experience someone has around you, how you carry yourself, how comfortable you are with silence. Whether your attention feels genuine or desperate, whether you have your own life, whether you communicate interest without demanding a particular response, and whether the other person feels free rather than pressured. Think about two men. The first constantly compliments a woman. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're different from every other woman. You deserve better. He says these things because he wants her to understand how much he likes her. The second man enjoys talking to her, makes eye contact, teases naturally, expresses his opinions, occasionally disagrees respectfully, and eventually tells her clearly that he sees her as more than a friend. Which one creates more psychological information? The second. Why? Because his behavior communicates identity, not just approval. He isn't desperately trying to convince her. He's showing her who he is. This connects with a simple principle from attraction psychology. People respond not only to what you say, but to the emotional context surrounding it. Now consider attachment theory. People have different attachment patterns and different comfort levels with closeness. An anxious person may seek reassurance constantly. An avoidant person may pull away when emotional intensity becomes too high. A secure person can usually express interest without collapsing if the answer isn't what they hoped for. That last quality matters enormously because genuine confidence is not, she has to want me. Genuine confidence is, I would like her to want me, but I can handle the truth if she doesn't. That mindset changes your entire presence. And here's where many men misunderstand mystery. Mystery does not mean disappearing for 3 days to manipulate someone. It does not mean deliberately making her jealous. It does not mean pretending you're unavailable. Healthy mystery simply means you are not an open book begging to be validated. You have interests she doesn't know about. You have friendships outside the relationship. You have goals. You don't narrate every thought. You don't immediately respond to every emotional fluctuation. You don't turn the relationship into your entire world. That creates space for curiosity. And curiosity can be psychologically important because the human mind naturally wants to understand incomplete information. But there is a dangerous misconception here. You don't create curiosity by becoming emotionally confusing. You create curiosity by remaining authentic while allowing another person to gradually discover you. Let's make this real. Imagine you're sitting with your female friend after coffee. Normally, you joke around and talk about work. She mentions a date she went on. Normally, you would ask 20 questions, pretend you're completely indifferent, and then spend the next 3 hours analyzing what she said. Instead, you stay relaxed. You smile. You listen. Then you say something simple. I've realized something. I actually enjoy being around you in a way that's a little different from most friendships. And then you stop. No dramatic speech, no pressure, no I've loved you for years, no emotional avalanche, just clarity. Now she has information she didn't have before. If she feels something too, she has room to respond. If she doesn't, she has room to tell you. That is psychologically healthier than spending another year hoping she somehow reads your mind. This is also where ego protection appears. Sometimes people reject attraction before they consciously evaluate it because admitting attraction creates vulnerability. If she has always categorized you as my friend, suddenly considering you romantically can challenge that existing mental model. But you cannot force someone through that psychological process. You can only introduce new information. That is why the goal isn't to flip a switch. The goal is to create a moment where the old pattern can be questioned. And there is one more truth most men need to hear. If she consistently tells you she doesn't see you romantically, respects your friendship, and shows no desire to change that boundary, believe her. Don't interpret every friendly gesture as hidden desire. Don't search for secret signals after a clear rejection. Don't become bitter because kindness wasn't a contract. A woman's freedom to say no is not the enemy of attraction. It is part of what makes mutual attraction meaningful. If she chooses you because she genuinely wants you, that's valuable. If you have to manipulate her into choosing you, you haven't created intimacy. You've created pressure, and pressure is not chemistry. So now the question becomes practical. If you have only a few minutes with her and you want to communicate romantic interest without destroying the natural connection, what should you actually do? Step 1. Change the energy, not your personality. The first thing you need to change is not your clothes, your voice, or some artificial alpha behavior. Change the energy of the interaction. If every conversation with her feels like an interview, stop interrogating. If you're constantly asking questions but revealing almost nothing about yourself, start contributing. Tell stories, express opinions, make observations, let your personality occupy space. Why does this work? Because attraction needs more than familiarity. It needs emotional information. If she knows everything about your routine but knows nothing about your passions, humor, standards, ambitions, or worldview, then she may know you without actually experiencing the full person you are. The common mistake? Trying to become mysterious by acting cold. Don't. Warmth plus individuality is far more powerful than artificial distance. Step 2. Create a moment of real connection for a few minutes. Stop performing. Put the phone away. Maintain comfortable eye contact. Listen properly. Instead of jumping between random subjects, ask something that reveals personality. What's something you genuinely want to experience in the next few years? Or, what kind of person brings out the best version of you? Then answer the question yourself. This matters because emotional intimacy grows when people exchange meaningful information rather than simply exchanging facts. The psychology is straightforward. Self-disclosure can increase feelings of closeness when it is mutual, appropriate, and voluntary. But don't turn this into a therapy session. You're not trying to extract her deepest secrets. You're creating a more authentic interaction. The common mistake? Going too deep too quickly. If she becomes uncomfortable, respect that immediately. Attraction cannot be built by forcing emotional vulnerability. Step 3. Use playfulness instead of constant validation. If your friendship is already comfortable, introduce more natural playfulness, not insults, not humiliation, not negging. Playfulness means light teasing, humor, shared jokes, and expressing yourself without constantly checking whether she approves. Suppose she says, "I'm terrible at choosing restaurants." You might smile and say, "That explains why you always ask me." If the relationship already has that kind of humor, it can create a different emotional texture. Why? Because laughter reduces social tension and creates shared experiences. But here's the warning. Never disguise disrespect as flirting. If she looks uncomfortable, stop. If the joke targets an insecurity, don't make it. You want her to associate you with feeling comfortable, alive, and understood, not judged. Step 4. Let your interest become visible. This is the part most nice guys avoid. They want her to magically know. She won't. At some point, you need to communicate that your interest isn't purely platonic. You don't need a dramatic confession. Try something simple and direct. "I've enjoyed being friends with you, but lately I've noticed I see you a little differently." That's it. You have communicated reality without demanding a particular outcome. Why does this matter psychologically? Because ambiguity creates confusion. If your behavior is romantic but your words insist you're just friends, you're forcing both people to navigate contradictory signals. Clarity reduces that confusion. The common mistake? Turning honesty into pressure. Never follow the statement with, "After everything I've done for you, you owe me a chance. Just give me one date." If you really cared, that instantly changes honesty into emotional negotiation. Your feelings are yours. Her decision is hers. Step 5. Invite, don't manipulate. If the interaction feels mutual, make a specific invitation. Not, "We should hang out sometime." Say, "I'd like to take you out for coffee this weekend. Just the two of us." Clear, simple, respectful. Why does specificity matter? Because vague invitations preserve ambiguity. A specific invitation creates an actual decision, and decisions reveal reality. The common mistake? Making the invitation enormous. You don't need to plan an elaborate romantic experience. The first objective is simply to discover whether the two of you enjoy spending time together in a different context. Step 6. Watch her response, not your fantasy. This may be the most important step. If she smiles, engages, asks questions, moves closer, suggests another time, or actively participates in the conversation, those can be encouraging signs. But don't treat any individual behavior as proof of attraction. Look for consistent reciprocity. Does she initiate? Does she make time? Does she continue the conversation? Does she show curiosity about you? Does she accept or enthusiastically reschedule a date? Reciprocity is more informative than isolated signals. Why? Because attraction is relational. One person's interpretation of a smile can be wrong. A pattern of mutual investment is harder to misunderstand. The common mistake? Turning yourself into a detective. If you're screenshotting every message and analyzing punctuation for hidden attraction, you've already left reality and entered anxiety. Step 7. Accept the answer with dignity. If she says yes, great. If she says she's not interested, don't punish her. Don't become cold to make her chase you. Don't announce that women only want bad men. Don't suddenly withdraw every kindness as revenge. You can simply say, I appreciate you being honest, I value what we've had, and I respect your answer. Then decide whether friendship is genuinely healthy for you. This is where emotional intelligence separates itself from manipulation. You are not trying to win, you're trying to discover compatibility. And sometimes the strongest outcome isn't getting the woman, it's getting the truth. Now let's deal with the part that usually destroys men after they've heard advice like this: impatience. You start thinking, did she respond quickly enough? Why did she use that emoji? She viewed my story, but didn't message. She laughed at my joke. Does that mean she's attracted? Stop. Your nervous system wants certainty because uncertainty feels dangerous. But relationships don't provide certainty on demand. This is where anxious attachment patterns can become especially relevant. When you're afraid of rejection, your brain starts scanning for evidence. A small positive signal gives you relief. A small negative signal creates panic. Then you seek another signal and another. Soon, you're not enjoying the relationship, you're monitoring it. That's not attraction. That's anxiety wearing the costume of romance. So here's your reframe. Your job is not to make her desire you. Your job is to become clear enough that both of you can discover whether desire exists. That changes everything. You stop performing. You stop keeping score. You stop asking, what can I do to make her like me? Instead, you ask, do we actually enjoy each other's company? Is there mutual effort? Can I be myself around her? Does she show curiosity about me? Can I communicate honestly without fearing the outcome? Those questions create emotional stability. And stability doesn't mean becoming boring. It means you don't allow one person's reaction to determine your self-worth. Think about the 7-minute idea again. 7 minutes isn't a spell. It isn't a psychological hack that overrides someone's preferences. 7 minutes is simply a useful metaphor for a short, meaningful interaction where you stop hiding behind the role you've been playing. You bring your real personality forward. You create genuine connection. You allow some playful energy. You communicate your interest, and then you give her freedom to respond. That can change a dynamic surprisingly quickly, but it cannot manufacture something that isn't there. And that's actually good news. Because imagine spending 12 months trying to manipulate someone into liking you. Would you really want that relationship? Would you feel secure knowing you had to constantly maintain the strategy? Would you trust her feelings? Probably not. Mutual attraction is different. You don't have to calculate every sentence. You don't have to manufacture jealousy. You don't have to disappear strategically. You don't have to become somebody you're not. You simply become more honest about who you are and what you want. And if she responds positively, you move forward slowly. If she doesn't, you respect reality and keep moving. There is another important psychological shift here. Stop treating rejection as a verdict on your masculinity. Someone not being romantically interested in you does not mean you're unattractive, inadequate, or unworthy. It means the specific combination of timing, chemistry, preference, and compatibility didn't align. You wouldn't expect every woman you meet to be your ideal partner. Why should every woman expect you to be hers? That doesn't diminish you. It simply means people have choices. And when you genuinely respect those choices, you become far less afraid of them. That is emotional freedom. So if you have a female friend you've been secretly hoping would see you differently, don't spend the next month studying her behavior. Have one honest interaction. Listen, connect, show your personality, communicate your interest respectfully, invite her, then observe what happens without trying to control the result. Because the man who can handle either answer is far more emotionally grounded than the man who desperately needs one specific answer. And here's the final lesson. You don't create attraction by becoming impossible to resist. You create the possibility of attraction by becoming impossible to misunderstand. She knows you enjoy her. She knows you see her as more than a friend. She knows there is an invitation. and she knows she is free to choose. That combination, clarity, confidence, warmth, and freedom, is far healthier than manipulation. So don't obsess over 7 minutes. Make those 7 minutes honest. Make them present. Make them real. And if something mutual is there, you won't have to force it into existence. You'll simply give it a chance to reveal itself. If this changed the way you think about female psychology and attraction, subscribe for more videos on emotional intelligence, relationships, and understanding the dynamics that most people never talk about. And leave a comment. Have you ever mistaken emotional closeness for romantic attraction? Because sometimes the answer that hurts for a moment is the answer that finally sets you free. Clarity doesn't guarantee attraction. It guarantees that you stop wasting your life guessing